Hello, Mike.
Oh, well, hello. How you doing?
Good. Welcome to
Thank
episode
you.
23 of the Brand Spotlight. We are streaming live on YouTube, Facebook Live, and LinkedIn Live. Thank you so much to our audience
I
for
love it.
tuning in.
I
As
love
I
it. No
mentioned,
pressure. No pressure when we're live on air.
no worry, no pressure. It's going to be very natural and fun. We also do like to involve the audience. That's why Mike and his team have been gracious to raffle off a new cookbook, which I just found out launches tomorrow, hits shelves.
Yes.
So you get your chance. And we will be doing a live drawing to anybody who comments. All the comments come to us, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn. And we could also, if you have any questions for Mike, we will also be doing some on screen. This is one more time. This is episode 23. It's streamed live, and then this is repurposed as an audio podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and your favorite podcast app. The first thing I do is I thank the sponsor. The sponsor is the agency I've been building up over the last several years, Brands Connect, and we focus specifically on custom or really crafting boutique marketing campaigns for brands. We take a very, very brand specific approach. If you have any marketing needs, reach out to me. However, I'm on all the socials. Without further ado, let's get into episode 23 of the Brand Spotlight with Chef Mike. Mike or Michael?
Both. Mikey. I don't care. My family calls me Mikey, but no, I generally go by Michael.
Awesome. Okay, so the format of the show is we will start with really what the real focus of the show is. What are you uniquely bringing to the marketplace? A lot of the new cookbook that you're launching says it all, but we really want it in your own words. Before that, we already got a commenter. Janelle on YouTube says, "Love Brands Connect." That's the
We love that
agency.
too.
Mike, I know you've been, I got your bio. You've been on MasterChef, which I've heard a lot about, but I've only recently started getting into the kitchen. So it's very new for me, this whole kitchen world. And I know you're launching a cookbook. I want the focus to be the cookbook and really the brand of the cookbook. I
Right.
know the name of the cookbook is I don't remember it offhand. I'll have to look it up. What is it?
Dinner in 30.
New Keto Dinner in 30. So you've branded yourself keto, and the new cookbook is in 30, which is I assume that's quick or somewhat quick.
Yeah.
Quick. With this cookbook, what are you? If you could define in a sentence or two, what is the brand that you're bringing to the marketplace in this new cookbook?
Yeah, I mean, I think the book is one facet of the brand, and it follows the messaging and my mission for everything that I'm working on, which is to kind of help people find health the way that I did. I think there's a lot of really unhealthy and dishonest diet culture out there. And that's why my branding in all three of my cookbooks starts with like new keto something, right? Because I'm trying to introduce a new and different form of keto that isn't this over marketed, over sensationalized crash dieting method, but rather building sustainable lifestyle around eating healthier, around cutting out a few very simple things, sugar, wheat, that kind of thing, but still really eating good food that's quick and accessible to everybody, and that isn't really designed for a 2-week 5-pound crash diet, but is something that you can build a lifestyle around. Keto food that you can feed to your family, even if they're not keto or even if they're not trying to lose weight. Because I think aggressively designed diet food, especially in this very high fat space around keto, isn't necessarily healthy for everybody. And so my brand and this cookbook is one piece of that, is showing that making healthier decisions around what you eat and what you cook in the kitchen is actually very feasible and safe and sustainable for people who want to do so. And you can eat real chef inspired food doing it too. It doesn't have to be a boring salad or a lean cuisine from the freezer every day.
There's a lot to unpack there, and to be honest, when your team reached out to me and they said keto, Master Chef is what got me. Keto, I was actually very skeptical about because
Right.
keto, from my from my layman's terms, keto has been marketed as another crash diet that's
That's
going
right.
to save the world and cure the world of cancer, which is it's those marketing statements and talking points I've learned to actually run away from to
Yeah.
some
I mean, they could
extent.
be red flags in any space. Anybody who's promising a magic pill is something you should question. And I agree. I mean, I see it every day. I see people who are interested in my work and people who instantly run away from it just because of that dirty K word of keto. And I think that's the brand that I'm trying to build, is showing that there really is a different side to keto. I know people who go meatless Mondays and do a plant-based dinner once a week or whatever. Doesn't mean they have to be a plant-based enthusiast. And um, I think whenever people can make small decisions, small improvements that can help their life, that is a win. And so for some people who are going through the drive-through every night, make one meal out of my cookbook a month, and you will feel whatever that is 1/30th better, which compounds. I look at it the same way as financing. Making small investments today in 30 years compounds to very real results. And that's what I want to show people, that keto does not have to be that just another money grabbing crash weight loss diet that promises everything. And the truth is, there may be some very real benefits around things that are beyond weight loss with keto. And there are scientists and people who study that I yield to them to bring in here. Me as a chef, I'm here to talk about what we eat, and I do believe that health starts in the kitchen primarily. And that's what I want to show, that you can do this. You don't need pills. You don't need crazy supplements and powders and weird ingredients to make healthier decisions around food.
So I see you're not a keto absolutist.
No, and I'm not keto 100% of the time, which is a really strange thing for a keto author and chef to say, but it's honest. I think that metabolic flexibility and the ability to have a healthy relationship with food, to find balance with food, is really important. I lost 80 pounds in 1 year by being very strictly keto, but that's not a lifestyle. I can't sit there getting on the scale every day and counting every calorie in an app for the rest of my life. That is not realistic for almost anybody. And so for me, it's a lot about just building a healthier lifestyle. I don't think anybody can sit here and argue with me that sugar and carbs, pasta and pizza and stuff can cause people to gain weight. And by inversing that, cutting out pizza and pasta and French fries, yeah, I mean, it can be really effective at losing weight as well. But it's the lifestyle. I myself I've tried several diets. I was a vegetarian for 8 years. I've done all the crash diets, and you gain the weight back and then some. And so what I'm trying to do is create a healthy lifestyle around food. I do that with my content. I do that with my digital work as well as my cookbooks.
Cool. So it almost sounds like you embrace the word keto and you are actually trying to reclaim it as a healthy and sustainable lifestyle. And even I'll use the word moderation. I assume it's a little more than moderation. You focus on keto, but it's not about being 100% keto 24/7 every 60 minutes out of every hour. It's about really introducing it into your lifestyle. Now, I do want to get into a little bit of the definition of keto and later about your journey. I know you alluded to that a few times. You said it was really your health journey. You lost 80 pounds in 1 year doing it. Before that, I want to, like I mentioned, focus on what keto is, but I just want to do a shout out. We got another comment. Fulton Pogs, you're my favorite podcaster. Okay, thank you. I actually work with Fulton. I'll do a shout out for Fulton doing marketing for his exhibit, and he does. We're on the topic of food. He does these massive, oversized food sculptures. These
Cool.
sculptures, like a massive watermelon, a massive, out of styrofoam, and covers it with a concrete-like material. So FultonBogs.com for those, and he has an exhibit in
Very
West
cool.
Hollywood. Thanks for commenting. I was able to give you a shout out. Now I want to talk about keto. What is keto? You know, we see it all over the stores. We see it in the cookbook shelves. What is it?
Yeah, I mean, now we're seeing like magazines in the grocery line next to the candy and stuff. You know, so there's two things that I want to separate it out. So keto is a metabolic state, meaning it is not a diet by nature. The state of being in ketosis occurs in your body when your body has switched from using carbohydrates as fuel to using fat as fuel. It's actually a natural process that occurs in all animals, our dogs, everything. We're born in ketosis because we're living off of and continuing youth when babies are breastfeeding. They're in a state of ketosis the entire time. They're basically living off the protein and fat in a mother's milk. So this is I say this is to say that this is a natural process that occurs in the body that is designed for long-term eating. When you live on a high protein and high fat diet, your body switches like from gasoline to diesel, right? It's just a different fuel source for the body. And it can feel great. You know, it's a very high powered protein source. That's why bodybuilders are in ketosis and other things. It's not just for weight loss. You feel great because you're sort of burning this new fuel. And it can also lead to weight loss. I mean, if your body has switched to fat as the fuel source, it will take from your own body fat as well, not just from what you're eating. So that's why it has a foundation in the medical world, but also is used in weight loss. So that's sort of the first layer of this, is essentially switching your body from using carbs, meaning sugar, fruit, wheat, any of those things. Instead of using those as your fuel source, it is going to use your dietary and body fat. That's the metabolic sense of the word keto. When it comes to how we actually diet, and I'm using air quotes if you're listening to this in audio, when it comes to the word dieting as a keto, it refers to a rather, typically it refers to a rather strict approach where you do not eat sugar or carbohydrates in order to enforce that your body has to switch that fuel, right? That's why keto people tend to eat a high protein and high fat diet. That way we're not giving any carbs to our body to burn. We are just using the dietary fat. And so what that looks like for a lot of people is different. But generally I like to think of it as a meat and greens diet. So we're talking, and that could be seafood as well, but a protein and greens diet. So, you know, a lot of roast chicken and meat and salad and greens. All the green vegetables are still very important, in my opinion, to a balanced keto approach. So you'll see in my work, I use a lot of vegetables and stuff. And that's really the foundation of what keto is eliminating potatoes, bread, and sugar in almost all forms, and just focusing on a much more balanced diet of meat and greens. So it's a little bit of a flip on the food pyramid that we were taught as kids, where the bottom of the pyramid was bread, rice, and carbs. We've now kind of gotten rid of that bottom layer, and now we're resting a lot more heavily on meat and seafood. Then you move up the pyramid into greens, and then and healthy fats, so avocado, coconut, things like that. That to me is a well-balanced keto diet. There are people that take a really carnivorous approach and go very heavily into this, but they may be doing it for other reasons, like bodybuilding, or if they have epilepsy that they're fighting. There's some medical reasons why you really want to be at a high state of ketosis that have nothing to do with weight loss. And there's all these products now. This is kind of a double-edged sword, but as keto has become more popular, you see tons of things on the shelf that are labeled keto: bars, powders, shakes, drinks. But they're still loaded with all sorts of weird stuff and chemicals and additives. So I try to get people away from that. I think if you're in a grocery store and something is labeled keto, ironically, I would generally stay away from it and try to get back to that more whole food approach of meat and greens, and try to keep that in the back of your mind.
Cool. So what I understood for you that keto is really a state of ketosis, and the way it is by using burning fat as your energy source, which
Yep.
brings you to that state of ketosis,
Yep.
as opposed to really carbs and sugars. I will interject a little bit. When I try a more meat diet or more protein based without any carbs, if I have too much carbs, it makes me lethargic. Without any carbs, I don't feel full. Is there a reason for that?
Um, yeah, so this is one of the reasons why people utilize fattier foods with a keto diet, because those fattier foods can make you feel fuller. Also, I just find that when you move into this space, we are so used to like I said, the bottom of the pyramid. We're so used to the bread and rice and pasta as the thing that fills us physically, the bulk of the food. In a physical form, your stomach expands and it triggers a message to your brain that says, okay, now I'm full. Um, you know, normally you wouldn't eat a pound of meat with dinner, but there are keto people who eat a 16-ounce steak and a side of greens like green beans or asparagus. And it seems crazy in any other context, but becomes quite normalized. So I guess what I'm saying is just physically making sure you're eating enough without having things like rice and bread to bulk out the meal. It at first can be a little confusing why you're still hungry. The other side to that, though, real quick, is that carbs are very, very satisfying and filling in the moment, but you also get hungry again very, very quickly. And that's due in part to blood sugar and the immediate reaction, the blood sugar spike that will occur when you're eating carbs, that also crashes back down as insulin is released. Um, with a low sugar or low carb diet, you're not seeing those blood sugar spikes. So if you eat more, you in that moment, you'll find you'll be full longer than you would with the same size meal, which is why you'll also have these connections with keto and intermittent fasting and other things like that, because oftentimes keto people can eat one giant meal a day and be full until the next dinner, the next night. So it's a whole different approach. Again, it's like you can't just throw diesel into a regular gas car. There's a little bit of manipulation that has to occur. Like your lifestyle may not be the same with the patterns. You may not need as big of a breakfast, but you may need a really big, like I eat a huge dinner, but that's pretty much it. Lunch to me sometimes is like a little salad or a few bites of deli meat and cheese or something. But then I get really hungry for dinner and I probably eat, 16 ounces of meat for dinner.
Wow. Thank you so much for really giving us a explanation of really keto and how it affects the body, and also not to be so worried when we have these changes in our the way we
Yeah,
feel. That is normal when trying out a keto diet. I
it
also
is.
appreciate Yeah, I also appreciate that you did reclaim keto as a lifestyle diet, not as a fad trendy diet. And you said it was really your experience that led you to there. How and I want to really focus in on your new cookbook. Is this? I know you've been in MasterChef. You've had other cookbooks before, right? Did I see that?
Yes, this is book
Yeah,
3, actually. Crazy.
book three. So, from what I understand, publishing a book is one of the most
Hmm.
grueling processes in the world. Uh,
Yeah, thank you
you're,
for
you're
bringing this up.
you're not doing this because it's a passion, it's a side hobby passion project that
Right.
you're putting 30 minutes 3 times a week. This is like I mentioned, a grueling process. You have to really believe in the mission, and you have to really believe that you need to bring this out into the world in order to go through that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for bringing this up because it's a big undertaking. And to be honest, unless you are extraordinarily famous, um, cookbooks are not extremely profitable. And especially the first time, let's say, for example. And so for me as an entrepreneur, as well as chef and trying to combine my passions, A cookbook for me was an easy decision personally, but a difficult decision for me as a business. The the actual, effort versus profit ratio is not balanced. Um, but it's a really important part of the work that I do. It's evergreen. It is kind of a hallmark piece to the work that I do. And as a chef, having the credibility of being a best-selling author and my books being available worldwide brings recognition and brings credibility to my work. Sure. Um, but it was a lesson that I learned too, just in entrepreneurship. So, I've built this business in just under 3 years so far, built this brand. And I'll tell you, the first cookbook, I took a loss. And that's not unheard of, but some people shy away from that. But I looked at myself as a startup and invested in myself and understood that I was going to lose money on this first book deal. But if I don't take this, there won't be another book deal, right? Um, I wanted to get into this space, and I wasn't going to be afraid of the work that took, and kind of put on my entrepreneurial hat and dove into something knowing that it was an investment in myself and in the work that I'm doing. And so that's the way for me I looked at, especially the first cookbook. Once I had proven myself, things started to get a little bit better and I was able to negotiate better deals. But I think it was a good learning moment for me, that yeah, this was going to be tough. No, I wasn't really going to make any money, but this is my shot. And sometimes in business you have to do that. There's occasionally times where you have to take a bad deal if it gets you to the next step, if it dials you to the next level. And that's what cookbooks were for me. I mean, they were a tool for me to share my work in a physical way, across the globe. And this was real for me. I mean, it's a dream for any chef. And I think it was really able to solidify my work, in a way that very few other mediums allow me to do. But in order to do that, I also had to learn a lot, right? Like you see behind me, I'm sitting in my photo studio right now. I couldn't afford, in that first cookbook, physically couldn't afford to hire a food stylist and photography team. That was like another 30 grand. Well, there was no way, right? So I went to YouTube University and learned how to film food photography and invested what I could in used cameras. And I mean, I bootstrapped this together. And that, looking back, is something I'm actually really proud of, not ashamed of. And I think sometimes we have to do that. I think anybody who's started a business, anybody who's got that entrepreneurial spirit knows that in the beginning, before you can hire and scale, um, you're wearing every hat. You're the marketing team, your HR, your PR, your design, your all of it. And that's the way it was. That's the way it was for me. These cookbooks are my baby, and what I didn't know, I had to just learn. I had no choice. And it did start my career, and it was all worth it. Um, but it was a tough but exciting part of the journey, and I love to learn. So now I found a new passion in food photography that I never would have pushed myself to figure out had I not taken that gamble, for instance. So yeah, I mean, I talk about this all the time. I encourage people to get out of that comfort zone and learn and try new things and see how far you can go. And I think that's very entrepreneurial, is to learn how to wear multiple hats. I think it's actually quite necessary.
Cool. Yeah, those were some great lessons over there. But I really want to focus on, you did allude to the fact that a cookbook was a unique way to solidify and really
Hmm.
portray your material in a way that no other medium could. Could you explain that and unpack that for us a little bit? Why that's the medium? Why that's what's unique about that medium, and why was that so important? And then I want to go into this cookbook. What's unique about this cookbook?
Yeah. There's a lot of free, if we're just talking specifically cookbooks and not published literature in general, there are tons of free recipes on the web, that anybody could access anytime, right? Like I can't be naive to that, right? So you could type keto recipes and find an infinite amount of free recipes. There is something about a cookbook for the food world that is important. And it's twofold. I think from my end, for me as a chef, as I said, it's a real source of pride in people in the culinary space to have a cookbook with your name on it, and it's certainly an important uh, qualification in this field. But for the consumers, for my customers, they are now spending money, whether that's $1 or $50, they are buying into something that they believe in. And now that they've invested in that, they have a reason to stick to it. And I think for me, where I want to teach people how to cook, it ties me into people, into my readers in a much more personal way. Not only have they said to me through checking out on Amazon or Barnes and Noble or whatever, they've said, "No, I believe in what you're teaching." But that book also comes with resources that you don't get online, with pro tips, with written sections, grocery lists, yada, 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 as well as every recipe. I write a personal story that allows people to see how personal this work is for me. And maybe they feel that and feel more personally attached to it in a way that just going on some random Google search may not provide. So I think food is incredibly personal. It's one of the reasons why cookbooks are one of the few written book formats that is still trending upward. Um, there's something about physically holding a cookbook that tells a story, that connects people to the food, that they can sit on their countertop, get grease splatters on, and be a part of that story in a long time, in a long format that's just different than just anything you find on Google. And I think that connection and that love to the food that they're cooking and that I'm providing, it does something, maybe subconscious, maybe conscious, but I think it creates a connection, and connection with food is everything.
So cookbooks are trending upward?
Last I checked, yeah, it's one of the few mediums that's trending upward in sales. Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
fact check that. I probably haven't checked that fact in about a year, but especially through COVID, there was this big boom of people cooking at home, and so um, a little, I think everybody saw that. Everybody was making sourdough, and they had nothing else to do, so cooking was something new to try. And so yeah, I think cooking at home is, especially as inflation goes up, is something that people can do to connect with their food, to connect with their family, and do it from home.
That's fascinating to me. Everything in publishing it seems to be going down, but cookbooks to be going up, especially when it is available. The information is available online. So it does. I know you really focused on the personal aspect, that people want to connect in a
Yeah,
tangible way. They
yeah,
want to invest in that cookbook, but it must be more than that. If they just want to invest in that teacher, they could just subscribe to an online membership. Like there must be
100%.
something
Yeah. Well, and one of
unique and
you know,
tangible.
in pure data, I can't reveal my exact sales, but we also offer. So the books are about $20 or so on Amazon. I think the MSRP 22, but they're usually about $20 on Amazon. And then we also have the ebook Kindle version for $9.99. So it is half the price to buy the same book for the iPad. And I don't know the exact number. It's somewhere over 10x more people buy the book than the ebook. So 10x or more people are willing to spend double to have the print version. So if this was a budget thing, there's a digital version that's half the price, even if they were willing to buy in, but didn't necessarily, they knew that they could buy in, but they're still willing to spend double or more to have the print version. And I think that alone says a lot, that there's something here. There's something about your question that's right. I mean, if people connect to the physical version that can sit on their countertop in a different way.
Yeah, I mean, food is also physical, so I wonder if that plays into it.
Yeah, I think so. And like I said, and I know it sounds kind of heady and lofty, but there's something about the way that people interact with food, where most every culture in the world, food is sort of how people show love, how we celebrate every occasion. It is sort of the connecting line between cultures and family. And um, I try to bring that into it, and that's why even for me, I share personal stories throughout my books and bring people into who I am, not just the recipe, but like who I am as a person. I think that's why people like this medium.
Cool. Now you have a few books. Are they all? I assume they're all keto, right?
Yeah, they're all keto friendly. The second book was a comfort food book, so it was probably the least keto focused, but all the recipes were still gluten free and sugar free. But it was comfort food, which is what we needed in COVID. I think in that era, just food that could make us smile was my number one priority, and then I tried to fit it as well as I could within a healthier lifestyle. But it certainly wasn't a diet book. And this third book is completely different than the others. It's really I would say a toolkit uh, rather than just a collection of recipes. Although it is that, I really look at this third book as a text in teaching people how to cook quickly and cheaply at home, and still get good flavor out of it. But this 30-minute dinners concept, came from myself, to be honest, from me working all day, even me, ironically, I can be cooking all day, but then when it's actually dinner time, the last thing I want to do is cook. And my fiance is a nurse, and it's like some nights it's 7, 8 o'clock, and I'm like, oh crap, I have nothing for dinner. I realize that if I feel that way as a professional chef and food author, like how many people feel this way, that shoot, we come home from work, we have no idea what to do, and it feels like the only option is the drive through or a delivery service that's going to cost a lot of money. And so I'm trying to solve a problem with this third book, um, that I think almost everybody feels multiple times a week. How do I get food on the table? And I structured the book that way. Like, one of the things that I did different than the other books is that, unlike dividing this book in like the breakfast, lunch, entree, sides, I actually divided it by the type of meat you might have in the fridge. So if you come home, you don't know what you're going to make for dinner. It's like, oh, I know I have chicken in the freezer. You go right to the chicken section. So that's what I'm saying. This book is really designed to be like a quick resource, and a learnable tool, not just good food. It's actually something that people can learn from. And my ideal goal with this book is like, you don't need to read it. You don't need to cook that recipe again, because it's so simple that maybe you've absorbed exactly how to do that. And the next week, you just know what to do when you have chicken in the freezer, because I showed you with a few spices or a few ingredients, you've created something yummy, and you can repeat that. So that's my goal, is teaching people how to cook as well as just giving them good recipes.
I'm going to ask a little bit of a harder question.
Hmm.
There's plenty of cookbooks out there. There's plenty of keto books. There's plenty of quick dinner books. I don't know how many quick keto books. I'm sure there's a few.
There's a few, yeah.
Does the world need another cookbook?
Yeah, I love the question. I'm not afraid of questions like that, because I ask myself questions like that a lot too. Um, and this isn't, I want to answer in a way that's like, I'm not here to bring anybody else down, because there's amazing other books, and I don't expect my book to be the only one people ever buy or need. Um, I think, or I'd like to think, that what I do different is bringing a culinary background and a culinary focus into a field that's not typically very culinary. Most of the cookbooks out there are by influencers, or even, you know not necessarily in keto, but there's books by actors and actresses and people who are using their celebrity to sell books, that probably have no real background in it. If they're even writing the recipes at all, they could be done in test kitchens with people they hire, and they throw their name on it. Um, this is a real life mission for me, both taking my culinary work, and combining that with what helped me physically get better. Um, and I'd like to think that makes this different, that this is really, really thoughtfully and intentionally crafted to help people cook in a way that most cookbooks, not all, I can't say all, but most cookbooks just don't really do. They don't tend to put this much love into it, where they're like literally every page handcrafted by the author. And so I'd like to think I'm different in that sense. But there's always room for more. Um, I just really work hard to make sure that like every recipe is really good and special, and nothing hurts me more than when I hear people who spend money on a fancy cookbook and don't end up liking anything out of it, or find one recipe they enjoy out of it and then throw it on a shelf to be forgotten. You could cook this cover to cover, and every single thing will be good. Every single thing will work. And I work really hard to do that.
Cool. So I see there's another layer. You've covered a lot so far in this interview, and we plan on covering a lot more. We really covered the idea of keto being a lifestyle, to being a very healthy lifestyle, and taking a very lifestyle approach and a very sustainable approach.
Yeah.
You've also spoke about the fact that a cookbook is a very tangible form of connecting with your audience. But the really third thing that you just brought out, I don't know if third, we brought out a lot of things. The thing that you really just brought out now is it's not just keto, it's not just connecting with your audience, it's doing it in a very professional and culinary way, where you're really crafting each recipe and each page in a very personal, and you mentioned the word personal a few times. Your signature is on each page, so to speak, and your signature is on the food, and it's a very culinary. And I would assume when you say culinary, you mean a very high quality gourmet experience. The smells of the food, the taste of the food, the freshness of the food,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah. And just to add to that though, culinary doesn't mean fancy all the time. And certainly my first book was designed to show that there can be a very chefy, uh, elevated side to eating healthy. Um, and if you really want to push your culinary chops, my first cookbook, um, New Keto Cooking, would be a good one. But I do want to clarify, and I think there's a lot of misconceptions, and I think there's some parts of the culinary world that get so caught up in this like Michelin star fancy. Everybody's trying to attain, these very high standards of food. But um, I look at Austin, Texas, where I live, as a good example. To me, the best food in Austin is from the holes in the walls and the food trucks. And that's not to take away from what the high-end restaurants are doing. Um, but I think that the word culinary doesn't have to be fancy, expensive, exclusionary food. It can also be food that is deeply rooted in flavor and in heritage and in culture, that tells a story, and that is just damn effing delicious. I don't know if I'm sure everybody's felt this. They splurged on a fancy dinner and then went to McDonald's after for a burger, because I think some people, and that's an important part of the culinary world. And as a chef, I push myself. That's what I'm doing on MasterChef. Like, I push that side of my career. The reason I bring this up is because, yes, my recipes, and when you get into this third book, they are culinary inspired, because I'm using restaurant techniques and teaching restaurant techniques. But being able to cook good food in 30 minutes, that requires restaurant techniques. But to be clear, the ingredients are very basic, low cost, accessible ingredients that anybody can get. You don't need to go buy weird fancy things online, or go to Whole Foods or whatever for expensive stuff. I mean, it's using very fundamental ingredients, but creating big flavors just through kind of kitchen hacks and culinary hacks that we as chefs know and use in the restaurant kitchen every day, to create big flavors. So when I talk about these recipes being kind of created, as a chef, I also want to clarify that doesn't mean that they're expensive or fancy either. They're just damn delicious. And a good chef knows how to create that much depth of flavor in 5, 10, or 15 minutes. That's a good chef. The fanciest stuff that you get at fancy restaurants, I mean, they're working on those things all day or sometimes for several days, sous videing and all this stuff. And that's not what this third book is about, which is why I brought this up. So it's chef inspired, absolutely, but um, it's not for advanced cooks or using expensive ingredients. It's designed to be affordable and accessible, even if you've never cooked a day in your life.
I love the progression. The first one was really the showing your chops as a chef and really building your name as a chef. That's the way you described it to me. The second one was based on the time, the comfort food. Now it's like real practical, good, healthy, accessible food with good technique, but the focus is not so much the good technique, but really the accessibility of the average consumer. It's keto. You're working a full day. This is not your new undertaking that you have, like I mentioned before, 60 minutes out of every hour to do. It's something that you have half an hour a day maybe to make a few meals a week. Use this book and it will guide you. It will really guide you through it. Wow, that portion of the interview has been fascinating, and I think you really described the book. I do want to get into your history as a chef and how you got into becoming a chef, then becoming a keto chef, and getting on to Master Chef. Uh, yeah, so I want to definitely get into that because I think we
Yeah.
really dealt with the cookbook a lot. Where can we? I understand the cookbook launches hits shelves store wide tomorrow. You could already do lots of pre-orders now. Where can we find that cookbook? And yeah,
Yeah, today, if you're watching live, today, October 24th is the last day for pre-sale. And I'm actually I wrote an ebook. I also write an ebook every year just for my website. I give that away for free as a free gift if you pre-sale. As a side note, people in the literary world know pre-sales are very important because they kind of indicate to your retailers how in demand your work is. So if you're listening and you want this book, go pre-order right now anywhere: Amazon, Target, Walmart, Barnes and Noble, Book Depository. It goes on and on. Like anywhere you buy your books, you can pre-order it. Today is the last day, and then you can get the free ebook, Slow Cooker Dinner ebook that I wrote just as a free thank you gift for supporting the launch. As of tomorrow, again, it will be fully available wherever you get your books. And you can also get a bunch of information about this on my website at chefmichael.com. There's a dash, chef-michael.com, or on my Instagram at chefmichael keto. So there's lots of information both on my website and my Instagram on where and how to order it, and links so that you don't have to search for it. But if you just search for Dinner in 30 or New Keto or Michael, you'll find it. It's a bright yellow cover. And today is the last day for pre-order, so you can get that free ebook as well.
pre-order now. The more you pre-order, the more we get good guests who want to come on our show. So yeah, and if you're listening to the replay after it's out, orders always help the author. So please
Always.
do that. You've also heard about why you should be using the cookbook. So forget about doing any favors. You're doing a favor to yourself by buying the cookbook and then using it.
Yep.
Now
I
I
always
want
say, like, for 20 bucks, it's like getting a few Starbucks. But this is a book you could keep and learn from and throw on your shelf for a long time. It's an investment in yourself for sure.
Yeah. So now I want to get back into your professional career and
Yeah.
how you got into becoming a chef and keto. What came first, and how it really, the question everybody's asking is, Master Chef. You do by going on there, you do become somewhat of a celebrity. I understood you were a runner up, so that's really cool stats. But really, if you could take us on the journey, what are you comfortable sharing, really, from the
Yeah.
earliest moments?
Yeah, it's a weird journey, and I wish I could say that every step of the way was smooth. But I think, as we've all felt, life takes us in weird twists and turns. It all started now. But when I've always wanted to cook. As a kid, I've always wanted to cook. I was surrounded by food with my family. And I was fascinated by the restaurant industry from, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years old. I remember talking to my sisters about one day I'm going to have restaurants. And I begged my parents for a job at 13 years old. I wasn't even allowed to get a work permit yet where I lived. And there was like a little Italian restaurant where I grew up, and we begged the owner, like, you don't even have to pay. But my parents came to say they were okay with it. Like, you don't have to pay him much, but like, is there anything he can do in the back of the kitchen? Just like anything. And they actually paid me like under the tables, like $20 a shift, in a $20 bill to like sit there in the back, and I like polish the silverware and roll them in the napkins. It's like an old school Italian place. And it came with bread and dip, and they taught me how to make the dip. So I would just like literally just in the back, this 13-year-old kid learning anything that I could. And I was hooked. I mean, that was really the start of my absolute fascination with the industry. Continued to work from high school into college and into my 20s in the restaurant industry. Restaurants of all culinary backgrounds, French, Spanish, Italian, American. I wanted to learn everything that I could. And you could kind of see that in my recipes as well. I bring in a lot of flavors from different parts of the world based on what I absorbed working in the restaurant industry. But it's hard. It's a hard life. And by the time I was 25, so at that point, what is that, like 12 years in the industry, officially, uh, I was pretty burnt out. I think it had a physical effect on me to be coming home late at night every day. But there was this other piece where I felt a little bit of shame. I don't know, self-created shame that how, this isn't a career. I should be a doctor or a lawyer or an architect. Like to me, I had this shame around working in the restaurant industry, that was wrong, that was false. And I left the business. I left the business altogether and felt like it was important for me to try to find more of a traditional uh, business corporate approach to my work, and got into real estate. And I'd also had this side thing where I love design, and actually went to college for architecture while I was still working in restaurants. And I left the food business. I just didn't think I had a future in it. And I got into real estate. I worked in real estate for about 5 years, about 25 till 30 years old. And over the course of my 20s, I think between the stress, the first half of my 20s of working in the restaurant industry, and then, I think the second half of my 20s really questioning my career and finding struggle in embracing my passion. I was a pretty unhappy person. Yeah, I think I was a pretty unhappy person, and I turned to food as a almost like a drug for me, where I turned to food to help me forget, to heal at the end of the day. And binge eating food became a part of my life. And by the time I turned 30, I was well over 300 pounds, pre-diabetic, very unhealthy, physically, mentally, emotionally, very, very unhealthy person. And I think I hit a rock bottom moment for me where I knew that I wasn't living my truth. I'd given up on the career that I wanted, and I wasn't taking care of myself physically or mentally the way that I should have been. And I hit a rock bottom moment. And I share that because it's my truth, but I think it's also important to be vulnerable and to share that my journey hasn't always been easy on me, or for me. So I kind of had a rock bottom moment, and knew it was time to make a change. I fell into keto sort of experimentally to see if it could help me lose some weight and get healthy again, with no anticipation for what was about to start happening next. And I just started sharing my journey on Instagram. I created an anonymous account. Didn't plan on branding this or going on TV or anything. It was called Keto Homemade. It was just the homemade food that I was cooking after work. this sort of unknown, anonymous, no pictures of me, no name, nothing, just an anonymous account of me sharing my chefy keto food that was helping me lose weight. And it immediately, I mean, it just started getting attention. Unintentionally, it just started getting attention and spreading. Within a few months, I had, a small following, and that's when I was approached from MasterChef. Somebody in Gordon Ramsay's team had noticed me on social, I guess, and they wanted to talk. We got on a phone call. I remember an unknown Los Angeles number calling me and being very confused about it all. And next thing you know, I'm in New York City cooking for Gordon Ramsay chefs. And sort of totally by accident, I'm being flown to LA for taping the first time I taped MasterChef. So I did season 10 of MasterChef. And I got there and did not do very well at all. I got 15th place out of 20. Again, ups and downs, right? So here I thought I'd blown an opportunity of a lifetime. But I also fell in love with TV in that moment unexpectedly. I've actually always been pretty shy, but there was something about being on that TV set that really like changed something in me. And so that was 3 years ago. So I got back from MasterChef and I was like, I am going to live my truth. I must have something. There must be some reason why my food is being recognized by Gordon Ramsay, nonetheless. Literally the most famous chef in the world is noticing some guy with a few thousand followers. Like, it made no sense to me, but I had to face that I must need to share this or do something with this. Sold my house, moved to Austin as a fresh start. I just wanted a fresh start. Moved somewhere in the middle that was warm, just something to kind of defibrillate my life, give me a shock that would encourage me to start a new story. And that's what I did. It was 3 years ago, almost to the day. I came with no job, no plan for income, nothing. I had just gotten back from LA. The show was going to air. I started working on cookbook, my own self-published cookbook. Next thing you know, I was approached by a publisher. And again, not even a great cookbook deal, but I was nothing at that point. I mean, to get any deal at all was like an honor. It was a risk, but it was an honor for me. And so in 3 years, I've gone from literally a completely invisible person to building a brand and multiple TV appearances. And then I just got back from the All-Star season of MasterChef that Gordon Ramsay selected me to come back. He felt that the first time I was on MasterChef, I went home too early, were his words. He said he thought I was born to cook. And I came back and beat out all but one of the best of 11 years of MasterChef. So I think I redeemed myself from the first time I was on the show. And again, really showed that, I mean, maybe I have something special. It's weird for me to say that because, it's a strange thing to say out loud, but something is happening. So yeah, 3 years, 2 big TV shows, three best-selling cookbooks. And here I am today on your podcast. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, your story fascinates me for a number of reasons, but it just the whole journey of starting being really passionate about the restaurant industry, working as a kid before you were even allowed to legally work in a restaurant, from 25 to 30, realized that you needed to quote unquote grow up and get a professional career, doing that, really hitting rock bottom, and then further developing this passion in a much healthier way by embracing the keto diet and a very healthy approach to the keto diet. And then for it to be noticed by MasterChef. And I think the biggest lesson to learn from here is I assume the hardest part for most people is really when you get to MasterChef and feel that you blew it. That's usually a point where people give up. I tried so hard. I finally got to this point almost magically. And then it didn't pan out the way you want to. And getting number 15 on MasterChef is a big, for the average person, that's a big deal to even get onto MasterChef.
Oh, it was a big deal for me too. Yeah.
But it was nice that you continued. It sounds like at that point you knew that you needed to go. You said you weren't living your truth, so to speak, until then, and now you are, so to speak. And also, you mentioned that going on TV, becoming that personal. I'll add a little bit. Becoming that personal, the public persona. You were finally okay with jumping into that role of 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 really being the public face for a cook, and being that cook and really embracing that role, and then just closing shop, moving to Austin, and just focusing on really building your brand of reclaiming keto, showing people that they can do keto with your 3 cookbooks. And you described how every single one was really a different facet of your journey and a different facet of your mission. The launch of the new cookbook, that's really cool. We really got to learn a lot about that. I think you really took us through your entire journey. Anything else that you want to share on the journey aspect?
Well, yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I think, I've learned so much through this, and among the many lessons that I've learned, has been probably the one theme for me personally has been sort of embracing the uncomfortable. And I see that as a business owner. I've seen that personally. Every step of the way through that whole journey from a very young age, but specifically, even if I just look at the last 3 years, I've been existing in a very uncomfortable place. I've been really pushing myself to my own personal limits and challenging myself the whole time. And I think that's been really eye-opening for me, because when I played it safe, um, uh, I got safe results, to be simple about it. And that's not to say that all of the risks that I've taken and all of the work that I've done has panned out. It hasn't. I've had setbacks. I've had losses. I've lost money. I've lost deals. This has not been a linear journey for me, but the theme has definitely kept reminding me that a lot can happen when you push out of that comfort zone a little bit. And I want people to hear that, because I think, I hid my passions from myself because I didn't really, I don't know if I didn't believe in myself, or I didn't think it would be possible to make a real lasting career as a chef. Um, but there was a day where it happened, where I was like, I'm going to, whatever happens, I'm going all in on this. And I don't think that can be glazed over as, as an accident. And there's certain parts of my career that definitely have an aspect of luck. I don't deny that. The right place at the right time. I was writing keto recipes at a time when keto was trending, yada yada. You could say these things for sure, and they're not wrong. But it's also what I did within those moments. Like, we were saying, oh, it's COVID year, so maybe I can write a book for comfort food or something. You could say that I'm in the moment, but it's not really true, because I was still pushing myself to be the best in that moment. And I think that's been a big part of my journey, is taking risks. And it hasn't been easy. On my socials, I'm very open about the fact that I struggle with insecurity, with imposter syndrome. I question every single move that I make. Um, I, I I still wonder why me all the time. Um, and so I just wanted to share that and be vulnerable with you in that regard, that this has not been, an upward linear trend every day. Um, but the theme for me, and the biggest lesson for me, is the power of pushing myself past my comfortable limits.
Wow, thank you so much. I will ask you the final question, but we will do the drawing. I will thank the audience. I will definitely thank the audience. And
Yes, thank
I
you.
yes, so The way we do it is if anybody comments, we still have time to comment, whether it's Facebook, since we're streamlined on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn, all the comments come to us and we get to select one, either select or randomly. I just do a number generator. Do you have a preference? Do you want to select one or do you want to do it at random?
My birthday was September 6th. Let's go with number 6. Is that a thing?
No, we didn't. We don't always get that many comments on the live, so I'm embarrassed to say, but that's the reality. We just launched the show, so on the live stream, we didn't hit that many. Do you see the comments?
I trust you. I didn't know.
Do you see the comments?
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Anyone you pick from there, or should we do the random generator?
I say do it random. Let's leave it to fate. I was just talking about luck, right? Let's leave it to fate.
Okay, I'm just gonna do it now. Here we do. I'm gonna click generate. Oh, Janelle has won.
Janelle, I love it. Congratulations, yes. Janelle.
So I will send you I'll send your team Janelle's info. Janelle will send it to me. I know Janelle. Thank you so much to everybody who's tuned in live. This is episode 23 of the Brand Spotlight. As you saw, we do live drawing sometimes, so make sure to check out our website, thebrandspotlight.com. So we are adding a little subscription button where you could get notified of different lives that we're having. Thank you so much, Michael, one more time. Whoever is tuning in, whether it's YouTube, LinkedIn, or Facebook Live, and anybody who's watching the replay, thank you so much for watching the Brand Spotlight, where we focus on what brands are uniquely bringing to the marketplace and how they brought it to market. And also, like I mentioned before, we're also we're replayed on all the audio apps, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, etc. The Brand Spotlight. I know you did mention a lot of stuff over the interview, and you may have alluded to some stuff, but do you have any parting words, and where can we find you?
Parting words. No, I've said enough today, but thank you for having me on. I really do appreciate it. And if you're listening, get in the kitchen, cook, get uncomfortable. That's been the theme. You can find me on socials at Chef Michael everywhere except Instagram. Instagram is Chef Michael Keto, but YouTube, TikTok, Pinterest, everything, Chef Michael. chefmichael.com with the hyphen in between. We'll have tons of blog recipes and links and info and all kinds of fun stuff there at chefmichael.com. Feel free to message me if you have any questions or you want to ask me any questions about keto or anything else. Instagram DM box is open, and thanks for having me.
Cool. And one more time, make sure to buy the cookbook, Keto in 30. I forgot the exact, just search Chef Michael Keto in 30 and it should come up.
Yep.